Hello everyone, and thanks for watching Victory 3D. My name is Emil Sliegers, I am a 3D environment and prop artist currently working for one of the biggest game companies, Ubisoft. I want to welcome you to this new tutorial course where we will be creating a Dagger game asset using Blender, Marmoset Toolbag and Substance Painter. The purpose of this course is to show you how professional game props are created in AAA game studios. We will go in depth on how to create a high poly and low poly asset inside of Blender. We will then create the UVs of our low poly dagger and make everything as optimal as possible so that we can go on into Marmoset Toolbag where we will be creating our texture maps for our assets. We will go through the process of baking our asset and I will show you how to fix any baking issues that might occur so you will know how to solve problems for your own future projects. After we created a wonderful clean bake, we will take our maps into Substance Painter where we will be creating our final texture. We will cover multiple things inside Substance Painter, like creating non-matte details, creating base materials, and revolutionary techniques to add amazing details quickly and accurately. Once we are happy with our texture, I will show you how to create impressive image renders that you can use for your own work that can be represented on your portfolio. Lots of people want to be successful in game asset creation, but they are not willing to invest in education and make sacrifices in order to do what's necessary to hit their goals. Don't let this be you. I know you will enjoy this course and you will learn a lot from it. Come and join me at Victory 3D. Okay, so we are going to get started with the modeling. Now, because we are going to model this based on a reference and without actually having the image inside of Blender like I explained, what I want to do is we first need to get like a base point for the base scaling and everything. And I think this centerpiece over here would be the perfect design for that. It's not yet too complicated and it is a good design for us to know like how thick everything is going to be, how the blade is going to fit in and everything like that. So having this, now it is very difficult for me if I need to keep switching back and forth, and it will also not be very nice for you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this reference most of the time on my other screen, and then whenever I want to explain something to you, I will just go ahead and drag the reference on my screen. So having this, I'm going to drag this over to my other screen and let's get started. So seeing this, actually I'm going to drag it right back. Let's actually say what we are going to do. What I'm planning on doing is we are going to create a cube, and for that cube we are first going to define the length. Then we are going to have the cube at the center here, and we will have then it screwing off down here. And then using our loops, we are able to have this as like, basically we are going to pinch this together and then we will have a smooth loop down here. It looks like that this is like a pointy version. We will have a look at our reference, how pointy that is, and that should just be an extrusion. Down here again, it should be just an inset. And once we have the inset, all we need to do is we need to extrude that in so that the blade fits. Now this piece, however, I want to have a look so that looks interesting. It always looks like it's on top of it. It looks like that we have this piece and then this piece is kind of like welded in there. Yeah, here. So it definitely looks like this is on top. So we will make this piece and we'll have this on top. All I want to do is I want to see. Okay, so the closing of like our blade is down here, which means that this is permanently attached to our handle. And that's what we will be going for. Yeah, so that will go on top. And then there will also be on the other side, it will also be here, and that will kind of hold the handle. So I'm gonna go ahead and, yeah, here we go, this reference. So let's get started. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to press Shift A while you are in object mode, and we want to go ahead and create a cube. Once we have the cube, all we need to do now is we need to find our correct scaling. Now for bigger environments, you would use a like a character for the scaling, but for a small asset like this, we can kind of eyeball it because we can always scale it later on. I'm just going to get rid of these things that I do not need. I don't need a light and everything for now. So seeing this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just in object mode, I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to scale it down, and let's say that we make our blade around this wide. For the thickness, we want to go ahead and we want to pick the thickness of the center as our base thickness so that we can just taper it off. So that will be, this is probably one of the most important pieces because it will define the scale of everything else. So I just want to make sure that everything looks correct. So let's have that, and let's have it a bit thicker. And we can and later on we are just going to go ahead and play around with it. Now once that's done, I'm going to press tab to go in object mode. And what I did is I have my own little quick favorites menu, and it's super easy. So in here I have, so if I press Q, you can set it to whatever you want, but I think Q is even the default. Here you see a few options that you can actually set. So what I did is I have like bridge loops, I have extrude faces along normals, shade smooth, shade flat, add center, which means like merging at center, merging by distance. Selection is for me separating the selection, hide selected and reveal hidden. Now, the way that you can do this is very easily. If you go, so let's say we have bridge edge loops. So if we go to edge, and here we have bridge edge loops, all you want to do is just right click and press Alt to favorites. Now, of course, for me it says remove from quick favorites. So if you would do that to another one, it says Alt to favorites. So I simply went into edge, bridge edge loops, and then Alt to favorite. The next one, extrude faces along normals. That one is in the faces. And that's this one, extrude faces along normals, right click and then just Alt to favorites. We have shade smooth and shade flat. Those two are in the mesh shading. And then you have smooth faces and flat faces. Or you can, I think it's also here in face, you also have shade smooth and shade flat. I think I actually picked the face one. So again, right click, Alt to favorites. Add center and by distance is in vertex, merge vertices, and here you have add center, right click, and by distance. Of course you don't need to do this, but this is very easily, if you use something a lot, you can just quickly have it in one shortcut in here. Selection is, I think, face, and no, it was mesh. And then separate, and then selection, and you can right click and add that one. Then we have hide selected, which is in mesh. Show and hide selected, so that one is over here, or you can just press H. That's an easy one. And we go ahead and we have reveal hidden, which is also in mesh, show and hide, reveal hidden. So there you can also do it. So very easy. Now there's one more that I want, and that one I have to shortcut, and we use the shortcut Ctrl R, and basically this is a bit to say it's like the loop cut. But the loop cut can only place one loop. However, we have one, if we go to Ctrl R, and this is the default, we have loop, cut and slide. If Ctrl R does not work for you, I believe Ctrl R is the default. I don't think I actually changed it, but you can go in preferences, key map, and I think it was called loop, cut and slide over here. Here you have loop, cut and slide, and you can set it to your own shortcut. This one is a bit annoying because it is actually, you cannot actually not find it in your menu. I don't know why, but last time I checked, they just did not include it. I even looked online and they did not include it in your menu. But the nice thing about this one is if you press Ctrl R, and you can use your scroll wheel to just add more or less loops, and that's very powerful. So we are going to have, in this case, only one loop here, and once you click once, you can move it around, but if you do not want to move it around, because we have already had it in center, just right click and that will keep it in the center. So there we go. So in the beginning I will go very detailed with what I'm doing. Later on when we get used to it, the explaining will be a little bit less, but I will still explain everything. So here I'm just going and selecting two faces, and you can just switch between vertex, faces and everything using 1, 2 and 3. So I'm going to select these two. And I want to set these to the final width that we have over here. So if we have these, let's say something like this. And then I'm just going to go ahead and go to edge mode. And I'm going to double click on this edge. And I'm going to make this a bit wider. I think actually something like this. And the last thing I want to do is in object mode, I'm just going to scale this out a bit to make it a little bit bigger. So we have this. Okay. now we also need to decide, are we going to make our knife like this or like this? It doesn't matter too much. I think I'm just going to go for a top-down view, which means that this view is this view over here. So knowing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select these faces again. And this time I want to scale them down, because in our reference you can see that they kind of like taper off just a little bit, which causes this crease over here when they taper off. And that's why we want to just tone that down a bit. I'm just going to go ahead and move this up a bit, and let's see, I think that looks... Yeah, I think that can work. So another thing that we want to do is now, of course, we have these two edges over here, and we want to just go ahead and make this nice and round, just like in our reference that it's nice and round. For that one, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to press Ctrl R, and I'm going to place one loop here, Ctrl R, one loop here, and then just undo the selection so that you do not need it again. Then double click, Alt Shift, double click to select these two faces. And I want to have these very thin, something like this. And the reason I do this is because now, once they are so thin, and it will take some playing around, you can press Ctrl B to bevel it. And when you bevel it and you use your scroll wheel, you can automatically make this nice and tapering like that. And that's how we can quickly get this shape. So seeing this, let's see. So we need the tapering to be really until the end. So knowing that, what I'm going to do is I might just actually ignore our end border. So if you press Ctrl B and just like clip it out, something like this. And because this is going to be a very detailed and close-up mesh for us, I do not mind spending a bit extra polys. You would not give this many polys for a game object, but for the closeness we are going to go for, I want to just spend it a little bit extra. So I'm going to go ahead and do something like this, and then hold click, and then all you need to do is you need to like select this face. Oh, sorry, we have snapping still turned on. And then move this out. And knowing this, yeah, I think we can use this to our benefit where we can taper it a little bit back. But first we need to do the same over here. So let's go ahead and move this out just a little bit. So I'm going to go for something like this. And over here also. I know it's not too precise, but for now we do not need this. Because first what we want to do is we first of all need to taper this properly until I think this one, looking at our reference, it looks like that it just kind of keeps going with the flow. It doesn't like spring up. So just use your blue scaling slider to kind of go with the flow. And then in this case we want to go ahead and we want to like taper it out a little bit, something like this. And that way we get this nice taper effect. Now, once that's done, I'm probably going to go ahead and move this one back just a little bit. And this one also, just move it back in the center. And don't worry, we are going to use the high poly and low poly modeling technique, which means that later on we will add quite a few extra details to this, making it not too important for us to have this line perfectly done. Of course, still have it done nicely. So having this piece, you can see that here we have quite a strong bend. So I do want to include that bend. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do one bevel. And I'm just going to use my scroll wheel to have one extra edge. And I'm just going to have this bend like this. And for now that's enough polys that we need to use. So here you can see that we can very quickly get like this cool design. So seeing this, let's see, am I happy with this? What we can try is if you press Alt X, you can go to X-ray mode so that you can select everything. I want to select the center and I just want to try something. So if we now go to scale and if you go up here and press the little dot, basically what this is a smooth selection. If you then select, you can see that now the selection is smooth, so it's not that one edge, it kind of tapers off. If you want to change the radius, you can just make it thinner or with your scroll wheel thicker or thinner. So I'm gonna set my scroll, actually I'm gonna go for top view because that way it's a bit more even. I just want to play around and then taper this off just tiniest bit more, and then maybe also at these ends see if we can taper this off a little bit more. Is that too strong? I don't think it's too strong, I just think it's a bit too thick, so I'm just gonna go ahead and scale this entire thing up a bit. Yeah, and let's now scale it just a little bit more out. I keep looking at my reference, that's why you sometimes hear me pass. It's because I am looking at my reference, and I'm quite happy with this. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. We have a nice taper going on, that's cool. Only thing I would say is hold Alt-X and just select the entire top piece. Oh, and now we can turn off smooth. And I just want to go ahead and make this a bit bigger. So let's say something like this. Okay, cool. Now what you can do is, because we scaled it like this, it's no longer in the center. You can just press quick pivot. And then if you go to over here, not our view, our item, we can just go ahead and we can set the y-axis, or so z-axis, back to 0. And that will just snap it in the center to the grid again, just to keep a clean workflow. So having that done, I think the easiest thing to do next is we are just going to add this little extra for our knife, where the shaft of the knife goes in. So for that one, I'm going to very simply, I'm going to press Ctrl R. I'm going to have one line over here. And I always like to just go to scale. And I like to just use my blue mesh, or my blue angle, which is the z-axis, and then scale it down. And this will just make sure that something is straight. Well, I cannot really show it here. I can show it here. So it will basically straighten out everything. But this is just to make sure that everything is straight. Now once it's straight, the cool thing about this is we can use Ctrl B for bevel. And if you have a bevel without there being an actual edge, it will just split evenly your edges. And we are going to go ahead and decide the thickness of our blade. So this needs to be slightly thicker than the thickness of our blade. So I think something like this. Do we have like an... Yeah, so the blade is... It's not too thick. Yeah, it's not too thick. So this should be fine. There we go. Here, let's go back over here. Okay. And once that's done, you can just go ahead and decide which side you want to have the blade on. So I had a bit of a brain freeze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select, I think from... I'm just deciding where to select from how thick you want your blade to be. Yes, this looks about alright. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly select these edges. You can click and then hold Ctrl Shift and then click again to do a quick loop if you want. Just, that feels a little bit thin, doesn't it? Maybe we want to go one extra. Nah, you know what? The blade is pretty thin, so I'm just going to hold Alt and just deselect it. So having this one, all we need to do for this, because this is going to be high poly, so we don't need to add any bevels. We can just press Shift E, which will extrude it, and then without moving your mouse, just press your right mouse button, which will not undo the task, but it will just extrude it in place. And at this point, we can just go ahead and we can scale this down. And then once you have moved your red slider over here, you can go down here to the resize and just set this to be 0, and it will make it perfectly straight. And then nicely move this in here. And that's all we need to do for now. So having that piece done, looking good, okay. Now we can start by working on this little piece. So this top piece, I am going to do this in the next chapter, where we will also just continue with the rest. So in the next chapter we will continue with this little top piece. For now, we can go ahead and save our scene. So let's go to File, Save. And in your source files, I made a folder called Saves. And in here, we will just call this, caps lock, Dagger. And yeah, that's all we need, really. And then just save your scene. I don't know why it takes so long to save this, but okay. So, in the next chapter, we will continue with this.